Hello and welcome to another edition of the Taschenheintze. It's tutorial time again. This time I'm going to talk about the DuckStation PlayStation 1 emulator. This emulator is relatively new on the market. It's free and it looks good. So let's dive right into it. Where do you get it? What do you need to do to get it? Well, fire up your browser of your choosing. Go to the search engine of your choosing and just type in DuckStation. DuckStation emulator. Let the internet do the work for you, and you see you can get it right at duckstation.org. On this page, it's basically only a landing page. It's a link page for GitHub. Keep this image in mind. I will come back to it later. So just go to the GitHub link, and this is the official GitHub page of the emulator. Since I'm on a Windows 10 64-bit machine, you need to scroll down to other features, system requirements when downloading running Windows. Windows 10 is the only version that's supported by the developer. And to download, go to this web link, or you can download the zip file directly. My recommendation is take at least a look at the latest releases, what's there to download and what's not down, or what you don't need to download. Let's put it this way. For the Windows 10, you will download the DuckStation Windows x64 release zip. It's approximately 18 megabytes. So that is not that much of a download. Nevertheless, I already downloaded it to save us some time. As you may remember from the Atari 2600 video, I prefer a certain kind of folder structure. So ignore those 4 files. I will come back to them later. Again, you have the console name that you want to emulate. It's the Sony PlayStation. Under this, you have the emulator folder for the different emulators, including the original downloaded zip files. Then in the zip files folder, you have the files that you will need to run a certain emulator, or both of these emulators in this case. You have a folder for the BIOS files, cover images. I will come back to this later. The games in certain different formats. My recommendation is that you create a memcard folder for each emulator. So I created one for the DuckStation and one for the EPXE, because I still don't know how compatible these files are. And you have a plugins folder, which is mainly used for the PSXE emulator. So back to the emulator folder. Those 2 folders are empty right now. Oh, they aren't. Let's make them empty. We will start fresh. Start fresh, boss. Now, you have downloaded the DuckStation Windows x64 release zip. If you have a winrar installed or 7-zip, which I highly recommend, 7-zip or winrar, but if you use winrar, please buy a license from those guys. You just click it with the right mouse button, hover over the folder, and say extract here. And there's a reason for the portable. You do the same thing here, extract to here. Now, the main difference between the DuckStation and the DuckStation portable folder is this txt file. I will come back to this later, just so you know why there is a portable folder, portable file in it. You will see it when we start it up. Now, let's go back to the good old installation type, so to say, or the default configuration of this emulator. You have this DuckStation Qt664 release, tlg.exe. This is the emulator that we will run. I recommend you create a shortcut in a different folder. Go there, hit F2 to rename it. Now we have the DuckStation, and since we are already on it, you create the same thing again. and just rename it Station Portable. Now, basically we can close this and can only use, or need only to use those two shortcuts. Now, let's fire up the DuckStation. At first glance, it's a big improvement over the EPSE from the user interface, because now you have great symbols, much more self-explaining than the old emulator. It's absolutely a plus sign for the developer guys. The first thing that you need to do is, like basically every emulator, you need to set it up. Now you can either click on the right side on settings, or you can here select the settings that you want to configure manually. You can even change the language. Its default is English, and I will keep it this way. There are some themes from the visual aspect. You can choose whatever you like. Let's pick this. Now, hit the settings button. This is basically, as long as you don't have configured the emulator, nothing really will happen, because you will only get error messages that he will not find this or that file. Totally legit. So let's configure it. Quick side note, I will show you the settings that you need to make to run the games on the emulator. Everything for the beauty, so to say, is up to you where you want to change something. I show you my recommendations so that you get the close to the original experience from the PlayStation 1 that you can have in these days. So, first thing is we need to tell the emulator where to find the BIOS settings. BIOS directory. DuckStation will search the BIOS images in this directory. Now, you see here, this already places something in the documents folder. I have created a shortcut here for the documents, and there you see you have the DuckStation folder already in it. DuckStation creates this folder structure the moment you start up the emulator. Keep this in mind. Later, when we will run the portable version, you will see the differences. Now, let's click Browse and select the BIOS folder. Oh, by the way, if you're hoping to find a link where you can download the BIOS files for the PlayStation 1 emulator, you will be disappointed. You will not hear from me where you can download the BIOS files for the PlayStation 1 or where you can download the games for the PlayStation 1. However, I will show you a way how to create your own WinQ files from the PlayStation 1 CDs if you have one. This is what I'm going to show you at the end of the video. Now after we selected the folder for the BIOS files, you can click Close and do a quick check. Click Start BIOS. You hear the sound. Everything's fine. This is what the PlayStation 1 looks like when you don't have put a CD into the drive. Now we can power this off, go to the settings again, so that we know, okay, this is working. You can leave those three settings to auto detect because the emulator is intelligent enough to recognize the game region and then select the appropriate BIOS file so that you don't need to put it in via hand. You can, of course, do it via hand, but the auto detect works fine for the time being for me as well of right now. Console settings. Again, my recommendation is, as long as you don't have any problems with it, leave it as is. So you can change the region, but why should you? You will probably find some big ass PlayStation 1 dump on the internet, and then you would need to check it every time you want to play a game. So let it on auto detect, and you're good to go. Emulation settings. Emulation speed is 100%. There are certain games where you want to have it a little bit faster, of course, like real-time strategy games, for example. But for the most games, leave it at 100% so that you have the 60 frames with NTSC or the 50 frames with the PAL system. Given the fact that the up-to-date PC is powerful enough, so that you can have the 60 frames or the 50 frames is a big advantage over the real deal of the PlayStation 1, because you do have some limitations in the original hardware, so that the frame rate in some games did drop a bit. And yes, it was annoying. Now, next point, game list settings. Here, the interesting thing is the emulator will search your directory and will recognize the games. It's an interesting feature. Now, click on the plus sign. Then again, I have it here in the games, and there you see subfolders. That's quite okay because he will scan recursively. So he will scan the subfolders in it. And now a sneak peek. um, that's it. There's nothing more you need to do. Hotkeys. If you are bad as in-depth emulator gamer, you will need those. No doubt about it. I don't. If you're a long player, you will need it. If you're a speedrunner, you will probably need it. I personally don't need it. I'm fine with the way this console or this emulator is working. Now, the controller settings. I have connected an old Xbox 360 wired controller to my system. So I need to quick configure this. Up, down, left, right, select, left, start at the right. Triangle is up. The cross is A. Circle is a B. Square is X. Mhm, mhm. It. You can select here the analog as well, and then you can left X, right X, left Y, right Y, and of course all again. Cross, circle, square. You probably ask yourself, why didn't he do it in the first place? Well, now I have both configured because there are some games that, or in the beginning of the PlayStation 1, we didn't have the analog sticks. We have only the digital cross, so to say. So there are some problems with some early games when you choose the analog controller, and it may not work properly. This is something like this: force the analog mode on reset. One big plus on this emulator is that you have information when you hover over some settings. Like here, forces the controller to be analog after reset. This may cause some problems. And yes, this is a good part of the emulation, because in the real world, if you have this analog button set so that the controller would be an analog controller, yes, you could have problems with your games, and then you need to reset the games again. Here it's fine, leave it off, and you will be fine. Memory card settings. It is an absolute recommendation that you move at least the mem cards to your zip files folder. So that would be here. PlayStation zip, mem card DuckStation, paste it in here, and that's it. It's already created. And copy the path, or even better, copy as path, remove it, paste it in, or you just can click browse, mem card, select it. I will not use a second memory card, so I leave this unchanged. And of course, I will browse to the folder where I will save my memory cards, and that's it. So the memory cards will not be saved in my documents folder, but they will be stored in the zip files memcard DuckStation folder. Display settings. I'm using the GTX 1080. I will leave it at DirectX 11. I leave everything as is. Only the cropping I will set to none so that you have the full picture experience from the PlayStation 1. That's nothing that you need to set to none, but you can. There will be no big image difference. Enhancement settings. Well, you can, you should, depending on your resolution of your desktop, should set the internal resolution scale so that the emulator internally will, upscale, for lack of a better term, the image. Didn't change anything else. I do not recommend the widescreen hack because the games were in 4:3. So forcing it to 60:9 remembers me to the old days of the DVD where you have a 4:3 movie and it's zoomed in to fill the 16:9 screen and it looks just awful. So I do not recommend it at all to use a widescreen hack on a 4:3 game. It makes no sense. Post-processing settings. First, you need to enable it. Then click on it. And the only thing that I use is the scan lines, because on the old CRT we did have the scan line, so I use only this. Audio settings, I leave it as is. I have no problems with that. Sound is good. Now, here's something interesting. Achievement settings. Well, the PlayStation 1 did not have any achievements because it was an offline console. And those guys in the background with the retroachievements.org have apparently created something that you go online and then get achievements for your old games from the PlayStation 1. It's an interesting concept. I personally don't need it. And you need to enable it. And as it's stated down here, you need to create an account to use this feature. I see no use in it, to be quite frankly. In newer games where you need to be online, yes, okay, but the old stuff, I don't see any advantage or anything in it other than yes, it's a nice feature. Technically it's an interesting feature, technically it's a nice feature, but I don't need it. Advanced settings at last. If you want to give feedback to the developer, yes, of course you need to change the log level from information to whatever you want to. Trace, debug, verbose, warnings, error, none. Select what you want when you want to give feedback to the developers. The more log files they have, the better. They can change something in the emulator and it's working. Now, the only thing that you can, or what I recommend you say, is that you can the multi-sample anti-aliasing, set it whatever your graphic card is capable of. But remember, the more you change, the less it will look like the original PlayStation 1 games. So the purpose of an emulator is to emulate the old feeling, the old look and feel of the old console. You can change that, of course. You can play around with the looks and feel, but remember, with every check button you set differ from the original, you will lose something of the old look and feel, the old, how can I put it? The old feeling of it. So, did all that, you can click on close, and here you have the one big thing that's absolutely amazing. You see all the games from the folder. Every game that's in here, no matter the format, it's listed in here. And that is a really, really nice feature. I can tell you that. This is the basic view. Most of you guys will be totally fine with it, but there is something else you can do. You can go to View and select a game grid. Now, this looks pretty boring, right now at least. It's a big blue painting with a white font on it. It's pretty boring. But there is a guy. Oh, that was wrong. There is someone who created Liberto. He created a lot of images for you to download that you can use in the different emulators. he is kind enough to have it on this web page. Don't worry, I will paste the web links in the video description. Or when you are more up to date, go to GitHub, and there you can see basically the same content. This is the old content, and he has a newer content. I will probably use this because this is the content. Fixing it on the fly, and you guys are there live. Isn't it interesting? Again, you scroll down to the games or the images that you want to have. Click on it. Now, of course, you can select it, open in the background, then you have the images and download every image for itself. Or what I do recommend is you click here on the code button and download zip file. Then it will create a zip file with all those 3 folders and this YML file. That's what I did, but for the purpose of this video, we only need the box arts. As you can see, this is, when you open it in the Windows imaging viewer, these are basically the cover of the games. Now, where to put it? Well, you take them and go to the Documents folder and put it in the Covers folder. Depending on your drives you use, this can take up a few seconds. After all, it's nearly 2000 files, if I remember correctly. 2582 files. Now, you need to restart your emulator and look at this. Now you have, or at least some of them, out of the box, some of them, the box art. Personally, I think that's more appealing than the good old plain game list. But again, like everything else, your personal preferences are the right ones. Now, you probably ask yourself, okay, what about the missing images? Well, from my understanding, the image must have the same name as the ROM file. So if you have, like here, for example, you have Ace Combat 2 Europe and Ace Combat 2 Germany, it apparently is looking for an Ace Combat 2 Germany image file. So what you can do is you mark the game, click Control C to copy it, click on the game, set cover image, browse to your covers folder, and select the cover image you want. And then you have an image. Given the fact that I do not believe that the cover from Europe and Germany are so totally different, and at least it's the same game, and you only need to look about the subtext, it's Germany, Europe, or whatever, I'm personally totally fine with this. Again, the renaming is also, the second way would be you copy the name, go into your folder, copy the original image, and then rename it. But this way is probably faster, depending on how many games you have at least. NASCAR 99, do we have something here? NASCAR 99 Germany. And open, and there you have it. So depending on your game library, yes, this can be a little work, but the images are probably all there in the folder, and you're basically good to go. So much for the configuration of the emulator. Let's play a game. So what can we take? What can we use? What can we... so many games, nothing to play. What the hell? Let's play Project Overkill. So the thing that I'm missing in this emulator is that you can turn off somehow the sound. And do something about the sound. Way too loud. Once you click pause, of course you need to unpause the game. Now, sorry for this, guys, but for copyright reason, I will turn down the sound. You never know. You just click start, like the old gaming console itself. You can select now full screen, and now you have the good PlayStation 1 game in its full glory. And you see in the loading font that you have the scan lines activated. This looks pretty cool. Yeah, it's a brutal game. So once you press escape, you will be asked if you want to stop the emulation. The current state will be saved. Now, this is something very interesting and technically very, very cool thing they did. They will preserve the game state from this game. So you can click yes, and you can click resume, and you will start off where you paused. Pretty cool thing. Pretty cool thing. So the other cool thing is if you want to see the enhancement, the post processing settings, you can do this on the fly. If you can click remove, you see the image change immediately. And this is a very cool thing they did. You can add basically everything and see what it look out max with no additional configuration. This here right now, sorry guys, this doesn't look very good. I don't know when this would be a good looking emulation or view. To click pause. So you need to play with this a little bit around so that you find your right setting. My right setting is only use the scan lines. That's it. Nothing more, but nothing less. So, is there something else that you need to know about this emulator? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. There's a game called Loaded. Now, cover. Let's fix this for a quick. Loaded. As you can see, this has the old US upright cover, and the newer games have the CD cover images. Totally fine. The games that day and age came with this kind of packaging. Now, if you have found on the internet some games, there might be some issues with it. If the game, for example, looks like this. This game will run in the emulator because in the Q file, it will recognize this as a data track, but the other tracks are WAV files, audio tracks. And this format currently is not supported in the DuckStation emulator. You can check if the game will play music by the following. I've created, and I'll show you in a little bit on how to do this. I created, because I have the CD, I have all the originals that you see here. I have them all as the original games, of course. I will show you the difference in the Q file. Now edited with Notepad++. Great tool, by the way. I highly recommend it because you can do stuff like this. And Now you have them side by side. Now the problem, I believe, is that you don't have the proper start and ending times in this bin queue file, in this queue file. While in the other one that I created, you have the beginning and the end times from the wave tracks. Track 12 index starting at 44:30, and the next track will start at 55:20. This is missing on the left side. This is probably the reason why the sound is not there. So if you find some games online or wherever, be sure to check the queue file so that it makes sense that you find where the audio tracks will start. Otherwise, you will hear nothing. You will only be able to play the game, but without the music in the background. There are some games where this is disappointing when you don't have the sound. Loaded is one of the games where the sound is good, so you want to have the right image. Once you created the image, you can fire up your DuckStation and you can say system start file, and then you browse. As you may have seen, I have this game not in the games folder, so it's not in here, so it's not listed in the background. Then select the queue file, because in the queue files there are the information for the emulator, which file for which purpose, so to say. And then it's up and running. And now I need to turn on the audio again so that you can hear what I was talking about. Let's let it this level. Music should start, and there it is. You hear the music. Everything's okay. That's the way it should be. Now, if I select the game that the DuckStation emulator found in the folder that I tell them to look for, it's either this game, Loaded Europe. Yes, that would be this. There you have this combination of files. Or it will use this file, but this also will not work. So this is something I find annoying with the emulator. You're not sure if it now uses the other image or not. But we will see it in a few seconds. If we hear the sound, everything's okay. If we don't hear the sound, it uses the right one, so basically the broken image file. Of course he uses the right one. Power off without saving, and let's try this again. Interesting enough, with the EPXE, I didn't have this problem at all, or I didn't care. I can't remember clearly. Of course, we didn't change the disks. Okay. Anyway, trust me when I tell you it's not working. So how do you get the right version for the DuckStation emulator? Well, there's a program called Ultra ISO. As you can see, this is the loaded, and here you see the raw files, which these are basically the audio and music files. Unfortunately, you cannot just copy and paste because the emulator will not recognize it in a proper way. So you use a program called Ultra ISO. Yes, I want to continue to try. If you have a big ass collection of original games, do invest the $30. It's worth every cent of it. Continue to try. Now, what you want to do is go to Tools, make a CD DVD image, select your drive, enable ISO volume filter, create a standard ISO, select where it should be put. Give it a proper name that you will find it, and click on Make. Multi-track format is not supported, and here it will say use WinQ format. This is because it recognizes there are tracks playing parallel to other tracks, so it will not use the ISO format, it will use the WinQ format instead. Select yes, and then it will do its job. My recommendation is leave it on standard ISO, and every time the Ultra ISO application will realize, hey, ISO will not work, it then will tell you, hey, it's not going to work. I recommend the other file format. And then it will go recommended, and you say yes, and you will be good. So I aborted this procedure. Yes, I want to delay. I want to close this up. Now, this was the first and easy part. Now you've seen me created a second folder, PlayStation emulator, called DuckStation Portable. In the DuckStation Portable folder, there's this text file portable txt. As soon as I start the emulator versus the shortcut, it will create this folder structure that you see here on the left in this folder. That means DuckStation will look in this folder on the right. Both constructs have their pros and cons. For right now, I recommend use the portable version because like I have it now on an external drive, and if I want to have all the games and everything else with me, then of course I need to have everything with me. Nothing, nothing more, nothing less. But if the configuration that I've made is on the computer where I made it, so then I start the emulator and have to do the configuration all over again, this can be annoying. So let's start up the portable version. And now you've seen, bam, more folders. Of course, now I need to do the settings again. But since we did this already, what I will recommend to you is just copy and paste. So it will copy everything over. That doesn't mean it's going to work, but we will check this out. Yes, we want to override the settings in it and start the DuckStation Portable, and at least we have the games. Let's see if it's working as it should. And as you can see, out of the box, it stores the memory card file into F. You see the scan lines are there. And now I can go to the documents folder, rename it to master config, something like that. So if you start the full shortcut again, it will not find any configuration, and then basically will create a new basis for your configuration. Not that I get any copyright claims. weird days I can show you an emulator, but as soon as somebody hears the sound in the background, you will get a copyright strike. I don't know. Ah, controller settings didn't survive. What did they? Did it? I wasn't on the focus. So you can click start again, hit this full screen button, and enjoy Crash Bandicoot, the first one, in its original beauty. For those of you who have the PlayStation 4 remake, I highly recommend try to get your hands on the original on the PlayStation 1 now for the emulator. It's still a fun game. It still is a fun game. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial video. Yes, it's a little bit lengthy, but nevertheless, I hope you can put it to good use. If you like the video, you can tell me in the comments. I see you guys on the next Taschenheintze. Have a nice one.